There are a ton of common houseplant rules that I've been breaking for years and years that doesn't seem to be getting me in hot water with my green friends. Seriously, I'm always at it and I really don't regret it. Look, they love me for it, I think. I guess I'm a naughty plant dad, and honestly, I kinda like it. Rules are there to be broken, right? I best not let Sheffield Jr. and Princess Sheffield hear me editing this video though. Carnage, my plant friend. Now, the first so-called mistake is actually going to shake you to your very root core. It goes against all conventional wisdom out there, and I'm actually a little bit fearful for saying it out loud. There might be a backlash, you see. This does come with a plant parental guidance warning, but here it is. I'm willing to bet that the two most common pieces of advice you get drummed into you all the time is don't overwater your leafy pals and never keep them in direct light. We don't want them to drown and burn all at the same time, right? Now, I'm totally on board with the first one because, I bore my viewers with it all the time, but the second one, not so much. I know, shock horror, but I keep a lot of my plants in spots where they get a few hours of direct sun. Look, I've got a ton of them right up against my east-facing window here and my west-facing window there. But here's the caveat before you rush off and go do this yourself. I live in Sheffield. It's temperate round here, which is a fancy way of saying it never stops raining, and the Sheffield clan love to moan about this all the time. I jest, of course, because we do actually see some sun, and my green buddies seem to enjoy it. But if you live in the desert where the hot sun blazes all day, then I'd be a little bit more cautious. It does depend on the plant, of course, and do your own research, but it's well worth experimenting. Just don't come after me if it all goes Pete Tong. Ficus plants in particular absolutely love to sunbathe in my house without so much as factor 15 on. I've moved most of mine to the windowsills and new growth has exploded. If you are mad enough to follow in my footsteps, then a good plan of action would be to inch it towards the light gradually over a couple of weeks. Your better half might think you're nuts, but it's worth all the palaver for super fast growth, right? Okay, let's continue because I'm actually finding all this very cathartic. Let's imagine you've got a green chum that just doesn't seem happy. Maybe he's got a yellowing leaf here or there, and he's always got a crazy thirst on. This has been going on for months and months, so you finally say enough is enough and pull his trousers down and give his private parts a good look over. We're still talking about plants here, by the way. You have a good look and damn it, he's got himself all pot bound, and now you need to go through the massive pain in the bum that is repotting. Getting the soil out, untangling the roots, making a mess, it's all a nightmare. Well, the mistake I make here that I absolutely never regret is leaving the roots alone. Yes, no fondling of the private parts for my green giants. I just plonked them into the new soil as is, no messing around. Maybe I've just blown your mind or made you switch off the video in disgust, but in my rather limited experience, roots always find a way. They're not as daft as they look. Well, maybe some of them are, but for most they will find their way around the neighbourhood just fine. For those that are so tangled up in knots that it's basically become a single big root, then yes, a little untangling here or there might be wise. I just don't do it as a matter of course, and it saved me a ton of time. There are a few things that strike untold fear into the hearts of many a plant mummy or daddy the world over, but probably the main one is hacking up plants. Otherwise known as pruning, of course. Pruning without fear is when you go from Jedi Apprentice to Jedi Master, my plant friend. A good Jedi Master, not the Anakin type. And trust me, I'm always at it. The Sheffies over on Patreon get to enjoy watching me hacking up many a plant with gay abandon. And here's the thing, I do it all the time. I don't worry about any nonsense about not being able to prune in winter. I break this rule all the time and I've got no regrets. Unless you're living in the Arctic Circle where the light says goodnight Vienna for months, your green pals would probably still be growing. Slowly, sure, but growing nonetheless. And even if they weren't, what's the worst that can happen? They're not going to melt. I'm melting! The worst case scenario is that new growth won't appear until spring. Plants don't just die from having a stem cut. I've lobbed off the foliage to lots of my plants and look, They're still here to tell me what an great dad I am. Cheeky so-and-sos, aren't they? This might sound like the ultimate plant parent sin, but I ignore humidity. Yes, I completely ignore it. Doesn't enter my thinking. I certainly don't make any changes in my home for the benefit of a few green friends. Oops, I should say that quietly or there will be a revolt. But Mr. Sheffield, it's easy enough for you to say that. You live in a house that's always over 70% humidity. Yeah, you raise a good point there actually. All I'm saying is that humidity is not the be-all and end-all of plant care. If you've got a sick plant, then the chances are it might just be something else. Rickets maybe. Anyway, check out my ultimate plant nemesis, Zebby, for example. This gal has been a real dog of a plant in my home for years, to the point where I said enough is enough and lobbed her in the bin. It's the humidity, right? Caliphaes need 1000% humidity to look remotely decent, correct? Well, just as I lobbed her in the bin, a wave of sentimentality washed all over me and I decided to try just once more to see if I can make her beautiful again. I then became aware of the horrors of chloramine for our green buddies and stuck her on a regime of water conditioner. Well, my plant friend, she hasn't looked back. It wasn't the humidity after all, it was the tap water. So if your grumpy little friend is sat there all miserable, don't just take it on the chin and accept all that ugliness. Chances are it's something that can be solved without the need for 20 humidifiers in your home. I'm willing to bet that you're a houseplant rotator. Let me know down below. You know, you give your plant a cheeky little 45-degree turn every week so that it doesn't grow like a lopsided creature from the Black Lagoon. And don't worry, I'm not hating on you. This is absolutely the right thing to do. Ooh, I sound like a politician. Look, rotating is great for the little suckers that just want to do an impression of the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Otherwise, they'll just get into a right mess. So rotate them like a rotisserie chicken, my plant friend. In Casa Sheffield though, not every plant gets to twist and shout. Some are left to face the light in one direction and I don't regret it for a second. You see, I've got a bunch of plants that are climbing up bits and pieces like planks of wood, bamboo and now moss bowls. Rotating these bad boys is not a good look. Makes them all twisted and not able to attach onto the support. So I'm leaving them be. Admittedly, I only get to see the scrawny behinds of a lot of them, but that's fine. Keeps me on my toes. Once they've sized up, I'll probably move them so they're up against the wall. Monsteras are the perfect example of this. I stopped rotating Moni the Monster a couple of years ago because the leaves didn't know which way was up and which way was down, the poor thing. Now all the leaves face towards the light and she looks much happier. Unlike her son. Oops. The one good thing that has come out of me starting this YouTube channel isn't the fame and glory that it's brought me, no, it's the fame and glory that it's brought my bin here. Yes, whenever I feature this guy in my videos, folks go wild. Okay, maybe not wild, relatively amused. Or maybe that's bemused. Anyway, all of this means that he regularly makes a guest appearance in my videos, the lucky thing, and this can only mean one thing, that I ain't afraid to chuck out a plant or two. This might irk you a little, but if a green mister is not behaving as he should and not bringing the house joy, then why bother persevering? Sometimes it's just not meant to be. Whenever I moan about a plant in these videos, sorry by the way, it's amazing how varied the responses are in the comments. A croton may look like a zombie in my house, but a princess in someone else's. If something's not right and you're miserable about it, then lob it out. To make you feel less guilty, you can even make a cheeky cutting or two to keep the bloodline going. If that doesn't work, then what can you do? Are you a propagation wizard? Let me know down below. I love it. There's just something so rewarding about creating brand new life, isn't there? These are my proudest moments. Oh, and my two charming kids as well, of course. Now, there is one cardinal rule that must most definitely not be broken when making plant cuttings. Otherwise, you'll be on a one-way ticket to plant purgatory apparently. Actually, it just so happens that I break this rule every single time without regrets. When you snip a stem off a pothos or a jade, you're meant to let the thing callus over for a day or two, aren't you? Well, I've never done this, ever. Life is just too short, and if a cutting dies, then so be it. Mrs. Sheffield certainly doesn't want random cuttings lying around the house. Thankfully though, this hasn't really happened to me. Either I'm the luckiest plant parent alive, or there's no real need to leave it to callus over. The choice is yours. Now, yellow leaves. Just what do we do with yellow leaves? No silly, no need for the bin. Not everything has to go in the bin, you know. There are two schools of thought here as far as I can see. Leave them be or chop them off. Lately, I'm in the leave them be camp, and I must say it's a little lonely around here. But we're not a dictatorship. Cut them off if you want, it's not a big deal. Just be safe in the knowledge that pretty much all plants have leaves that turn yellow. It's the circle of life after all, nothing lasts forever. Look at this peperomia raindrop. I shouldn't really be showing you this because, well, look at it. Makes me look like I don't know what I'm doing. But let's call this an experiment. I'm experimenting to see if this guy can handle direct sun like I said earlier. And it's looking like maybe not so much. I've not regretted this choice though. I've learned a thing or two, even though I've got one less friend in the world. Oh well. Winter plant care can be a very tricky thing. Keeps me up at night anyway. I mean, just why do they look so terrible? Well, my plant friend, it isn't because you repotted it. Repotting will not death a plant make. Or something. You might be thinking this needs to wait until spring, right? Well, be rest assured that you can repot your plants in winter just as much as during spring. Roots tend to grow all year as long as temperatures are above 12 degrees Celsius. So if a plant is in desperate need of a repot, like my Anthurium here, then don't be shy. They'll only continue to get more root bound over winter, so they'll appreciate the extra room and certainly won't keel over for you. The real reason your plants suck is something entirely different. And no, it's not the cold. To find out exactly what it is, click on the link on the screen now and subscribe.